Good evening, and welcome back to Sleepy Historian. Tonight, as you settle in, perhaps beneath a blanket, perhaps with the quiet hum of your room surrounding you, we are going to travel slowly backward in time, far back enough that warmth itself was never guaranteed. Before we begin, take a moment to shift gently into a comfortable position. Let your shoulders relax. Allow your breathing to slow, just a little. This is not a story that needs your full attention. You may listen carefully, or you may drift in and out as sleep begins to arrive. Both are perfectly welcome here, and if you enjoy quiet journeys to history like this one, you might consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and perhaps returning again on another night when sleep feels just a little distant. But for now, there is nothing you need to do. Only listen, because tonight we are going to explore something that might feel a little surprising. When most people imagine medieval queens, they picture luxury, heavy velvet curtains, massive roaring fireplaces, golden goblets, and endless comfort. But the truth is quieter than that, and much colder. Even the most powerful queens in medieval Europe often spent their winter nights inside rooms that were colder than the homes of ordinary villagers. Stone castles, impressive as they appeared, were not designed for comfort. They were designed for war. Their walls were thick and strong, able to withstand siege weapons and invading armies. Their windows were narrow slits in the stone. Their ceilings rose high above the floor. All of these features made castles difficult to attack, but they also made them incredibly difficult to heat. During the winter months, the stone walls absorbed the cold of the outside air during the day, and slowly released that cold back into the rooms during the night, which meant that when darkness fell and the fires burned lower, the cold returned, slowly, quietly, and inevitably, even for a queen. Tonight we will spend a long winter night inside one of these castles, not as a visitor passing through for a few moments, but as someone who must endure the entire night. You will walk through the stone corridors after sunset, when the last warmth of the day has already faded. You will see the preparations servants make before the queen retires to her chamber. You will watch as the bed is layered with blankets, curtains, and fur coverings, each one meant to hold a little more warmth against the long hours ahead. And you will discover that sleeping in a medieval castle was not simply a matter of closing your eyes. It was a careful routine, a small collection of rituals meant to help the body endure the slow arrival of cold, because winter nights in the Middle Ages were long, often 14 hours of darkness, sometimes more. And inside a castle, the night did not pass quickly. The wind moved across the battlements, fires settled into quiet embers, guards walked the walls in slow, repeating patterns, and deep inside the stone chambers, people waited for morning. Even queens. It is easy to imagine that power could protect someone from discomfort, but warmth in the medieval world was not something power alone could command. Wood had to be carried, fires had to be tended, clothing had to be layered carefully, and even then, warmth rarely filled the entire room. Instead, it gathered in small pockets, around the fire, inside heavy bed curtains, beneath thick blankets. Outside those small islands of warmth, the air remained cold. And so queens learned to adapt. They wore woolen garments beneath their night robes. They slept beneath layers of fur. Their beds were surrounded by curtains designed to trap what little warmth could be gathered. Sometimes heated stones were wrapped in cloth and placed between blankets. Sometimes servants warmed the bed with metal pans filled with glowing coals. All of these efforts were quiet attempts to solve the same problem. How do you stay warm in a room made almost entirely of stone? It is a question that medieval people lived with every winter. And tonight, we will experience the slow answer to that question together. We will watch the castle after sunset, when the last of the day's warmth slips away. We will see how the queen's chamber is prepared for the night. We will lie down inside a curtained bed where warmth gathers slowly around you. And we will wait through the long middle hours of the night, when the fire begins to fade and the cold presses gently back against the walls. There will be no sudden events, no dramatic turning points, just the quiet endurance of a winter night in a place built for defense rather than comfort. If you begin to drift towards sleep as we move through the castle corridors, that is perfectly fine. History does not mind if you fall asleep while listening. In fact, nights like these were often slow enough that the people living them might have wished they could sleep through more of them. So settle in. Allow your breathing to slow, and imagine that the sun has just disappeared behind distant hills. The castle doors have been closed. Torches flicker softly along the stone corridors. Outside, snow moves quietly across the fields, and somewhere high above those fields, inside a chamber surrounded by thick stone walls, a queen is preparing for another long winter night. But before she sleeps, the castle itself must settle into darkness, and that is where our night begins. Evening settles slowly over the castle. The last light of the winter sun has already faded beyond the distant hills, and the stone walls that surrounded the castle all day now begin to release the cold they had been quietly collecting. From outside, the fortress still appears strong and unmoving. Tall towers rise against the darkening sky. Narrow windows glow faintly with torchlight. The heavy wooden gates remain closed, but inside, the temperature is already changing. You step into one of the long stone corridors, and the first thing you notice is the sound. Your footsteps echo. Stone has a way of returning sound gently but clearly. Each step you take travels down the corridor before slowly dissolving into quiet. Torches burn along the walls at steady intervals. Their flames are small but persistent, casting warm orange light across the stone. Yet the warmth they provide is almost entirely visual. The air itself remains cool enough that you can see your breath for a moment when you exhale. This is the quiet truth of a medieval castle. It holds light far better than it holds heat. The walls around you are thick. In many places they measure several feet from one side to the other. Builders created them this way for a reason. Thick walls could resist siege weapons. They could absorb the force of stones launched from distant catapults. They could stop arrows, slow battering rams, and protect the people inside during long months of war. But those same walls behave differently during long months of war. But those same walls behave differently during winter. All day long they absorb the chill from the outside air. And when night arrives, that cold slowly spreads back into the rooms. Not suddenly, just steadily. You move further down the corridor, your hand brushing lightly against the stone as you walk. The surface feels dry, rough, and distinctly cold. Stone is slow to change temperature. That is one of its most defining qualities. Once it becomes cold, it holds that cold for many hours, which means the castle is never truly warm. Even when fires burn, even when candles glow in every chamber, even when kitchens are filled with heat from baking ovens, the warmth always feels temporary, as if it belongs only to the moment directly beside the flame. Ahead of you, the corridor turns slightly, opening into a small stairwell. The steps spiral upward inside the wall itself. Each one is worn smooth by centuries of use. Servants pass through here constantly during the evening hours. You might see one now, moving quietly with a small lantern in hand. She climbs the steps carefully, carrying a folded armful of wool blankets. Another servant follows some distance behind, holding a small iron pan filled with glowing coals. These preparations are not unusual. They happen every winter evening, because somewhere above these narrow stairs the Queen's chamber is waiting, and that chamber will soon need warmth. But for the moment, the castle still belongs to the slow rhythm of evening routines. From deeper within the fortress you might hear the distant sounds of the kitchens, wood being moved, iron pots shifting against stone hearths, the muffled voices of cooks finishing their final tasks for the night. Those rooms remain the warmest places in the entire building. Ovens hold their heat long after bread has been removed. Fireplaces burn continuously through the evening meal. Servants working there often linger for a few extra moments before leaving, enjoying the last comfortable warmth before returning to the colder parts of the castle. But the Queen's chamber is far from the kitchens. Royal apartments are usually placed higher in the structure, both for privacy and security, which means heat must travel upward through hallways, staircases, and chambers before it reaches her room. And much of it never arrives. You continue along the corridor until you reach one of the castle's narrow windows. From the outside, these windows appear almost like thin slits carved into the wall. Their small size makes them difficult for attackers to use as entry points, but they also allow winter air to move quietly through the castle. Tonight, a faint draft slips inward through the opening. It carries the scent of snow. The air brushes lightly against your face before disappearing down the corridor behind you. Small drafts like this are common in medieval buildings. Even the most carefully constructed castles cannot completely stop moving air, and moving air, especially during winter, carries cold wherever it goes. You step away from the window and continue walking. Ahead, a large wooden door stands slightly open. Beyond it lies one of the castle's great chambers. Inside, the ceiling rises high above the floor, supported by heavy beams darkened by age. A fireplace stands along one wall, where a modest fire burns with steady patience, but the room is large, too large for the fire to warm completely. Heat gathers close to the hearth, where two servants kneel while arranging additional logs. Their hands move slowly, practiced by repetition. One of them glances toward the doorway as you pass. Then she returns to her task, because even this fire, carefully tended as it is, will not last the entire night without attention. The castle understands winter in a quiet way. Every room, every corridor, every stone surface slowly adjusting to the cold, and somewhere above this chamber, servants are already preparing the queen's bed. Layer by layer, blankets, curtains, fur coverings, all designed to create a small island of warmth within a much colder room. For now, though, the castle remains awake. Guards continue their steady walk along the battlements outside. Torches flicker in sheltered corners. The wind brushes softly across the towers, and inside the stone walls the cold settles in for the long night ahead. Because winter nights in a castle do not arrive suddenly, they arrive the way cold always does, gradually, patiently, stone holding the memory of the outside air, and slowly sharing it with everything inside. Even the chambers of a queen, higher in the castle, beyond the winding staircases and quiet corridors, the queen's chamber waits in the dim light of evening. It is not silent. Few rooms inside a castle ever truly are. There is always the faint whisper of wind moving along the outer walls, the distant shift of footsteps somewhere far below, the slow, steady crackle of a fire doing its patient work inside the hearth. But compared to the busier halls and kitchens, the queen's chamber feels calm, a place where the activity of the day gradually settles into quieter routines. Tonight, like many winter nights before it, the room must be prepared carefully before the queen arrives to sleep, because warmth here does not happen by accident. It must be built, layer by layer. Near the center of the chamber stands the bed. It is large by medieval standards, raised several feet above the stone floor on a sturdy wooden frame. The height alone serves a practical purpose. Cold air tends to settle low in a room, especially one with stone floors. By lifting the bed higher, the sleeper remains slightly removed from the coldest air. The frame itself is carved from thick oak beams darkened with age. 4 tall posts rise from the corners, supporting a canopy above. From this canopy hang heavy fabric curtains, currently tied back with braided cords. During the day, the curtains remain open, allowing light and air to move through the chamber. But during the night they will become something else entirely, a small wall against the cold. One of the servants approaches the bed now, carrying a bundle of folded linen. She places it gently on the mattress and begins the quiet work of arranging the sheets. The mattress beneath her hands is not soft in the modern sense. It is filled with straw, sometimes mixed with wool or feathers depending on the wealth of the household. The filling shifts slightly as she smooths the linen across its surface, creating a firm but flexible base for the many layers that will soon follow. In winter, the number of blankets increases. One servant lays down the first wool covering, then another, and another. Each blanket is thick, slightly coarse to the touch, but excellent at holding warmth. Wool was one of the most valuable materials in medieval Europe for exactly this reason. It traps small pockets of air within its fibers, and those tiny pockets help slow the escape of heat from the body beneath it. A second servant enters quietly, carrying a large folded pelt of fur. She places it at the foot of the bed. Fur coverings were prized during the coldest months. The soft underside of the pelt creates a barrier that holds warmth close to the body while blocking colder air from reaching the skin. The fur may come from animals such as fox, marten, or even bear, depending on what the royal household possesses. This particular one is dark and thick, its surface catching the warm glow of the fireplace across the room. But even with blankets and fur, the bed is not yet ready. Another small ritual must take place. The servant who climbed the spiral staircase earlier arrives at the doorway, carrying the iron pan filled with glowing coals. The pan is round and shallow, with a long handle designed to keep hands safely away from the heat. She approaches the bed carefully. The coals glow softly inside the metal, releasing gentle warmth but very little flame. When used properly, this method warms the bedding without risking fire. The servant lifts the upper blankets slightly and slides the pan beneath them. For a few moments she moves it slowly across the mattress, allowing warmth to spread through the layers of wool and linen. The heat seeps quietly into the fabric. The bed begins to lose its winter chill. After a short time, the pan is removed again, its work complete. It will soon be returned to the hearth where the coals can fade safely. Now another servant steps forward to prepare the bed curtains. She unties the cords holding them open and allows the heavy fabric to fall gently into place. The curtains are made from thick woven cloth, sometimes velvet, sometimes wool, sometimes layered with additional lining. Their purpose is simple but effective. Once drawn close, they trap the warmth of the bed inside a much smaller space. Without them, the body's heat would drift upward into the vast air of the chamber. With them, that warmth stays closer, contained, protected. The difference can be remarkable. Inside the bed curtains, the air may feel several degrees warmer than the rest of the room. It becomes a small private chamber within the larger one, a quiet pocket of heat in an otherwise cold castle. As the servants finish their preparations, the fire in the hearth continues its slow burning across the room. The flames shift gently between the logs. Every so often, a small pop of sap sends a brief shower of sparks upward before fading again. But even this fire, steady as it seems, cannot warm the entire chamber. The ceiling above stretches high into shadow. The far corners of the room remain dim and cool. Stone absorbs warmth much the way it absorbs cold, slowly, reluctantly, which is why the bed itself must become the true refuge of the night, a place carefully designed to hold what warmth can be gathered. The servants step back now to observe their work. Blankets lie smooth and layered. Fur rests ready near the top. Curtains hang loosely, ready to be drawn fully closed once the queen lies down. Everything is prepared. Everything is waiting. Outside the chamber door, footsteps pass quietly along the corridor. A guard completing his evening rounds. Somewhere deeper in the castle, another door closes softly. Night continues its slow arrival. And inside this chamber, the bed, warmed, layered, and sheltered, waits patiently for the queen who will soon depend on it to endure the long winter hours ahead. Because within the walls of a medieval castle, surviving the night often begins with something as simple and as carefully prepared as a warm bed. By the time the bed has been prepared, the castle itself has grown quieter. The last activity of the kitchens has faded into distant echoes. Servants move more softly through the corridors. Torches burn lower in their iron brackets. Winter night settles over the fortress with a slow, steady patience. And somewhere within the upper chambers, the queen begins the quiet ritual of preparing for sleep. This ritual is not rushed. It follows a familiar order practiced countless times during the colder months of the year. Because just like the bed, the body must be prepared carefully for the long hours ahead. You might imagine a medieval queen retiring to bed in elegant gowns or delicate garments. But the truth, as with many things in the Middle Ages, is more practical. Warmth matters far more than appearance once night arrives. Inside the queen's private chamber, the fire burns softly in the hearth. Its glow reflects across the stone floor, warming the space closest to it, while leaving the far corners of the room cool and shadowed. A servant stands nearby holding a candle. Its small flame moves gently as the queen begins removing the heavier clothing worn during the day. The outer garments are the first to go, thick robes lined with decorative embroidery, velvet cloaks worn during courtly meetings, heavy belts that hold small pouches or ceremonial tools. These items are beautiful, but they are not meant for sleeping. One by one they are lifted away and folded carefully. Each garment is placed over a wooden chest or a nearby chair so it can be worn again in the morning. Beneath these outer layers remain simpler garments. A long linen camise rests against the skin. Linen was widely used in medieval clothing for one important reason. It breathes. The fabric allows moisture from the body to escape while still providing a light barrier between skin and colder outer garments. During winter nights, this linen layer becomes the foundation upon which warmth is built. But linen alone is not enough. The queen reaches for another garment waiting nearby. This one is made of wool. Soft, but thicker than the linen beneath it. Wool is one of the most valuable fabrics in the medieval world, not because it looks luxurious, but because it holds warmth remarkably well. The fibers naturally trap small pockets of air, slowing the escape of body heat. When worn in layers, wool creates an insulating barrier against cold air. So the queen pulls the woolen garment over the linen camise. The additional layer rests comfortably around the arms and shoulders, providing the first true sense of warmth for the night. Another piece follows, a robe designed specifically for sleeping during winter months. This robe may also be wool, or in some cases lined with soft fur along the collar and cuffs. It wraps around the body with loose ties, allowing freedom of movement while still holding warmth close to the skin. The servants assisting with these preparations work quietly. They have performed these tasks many times before. Each step follows the same calm rhythm. Fold the garment, arrange the robe, adjust the sleeve, ensure nothing restricts movement, because comfort during sleep matters almost as much as warmth itself. Too many tight layers would make the night restless. Too few would leave the sleeper exposed to cold. The balance must be just right. But even with linen and wool, another small detail remains: the head. Much of the body's warmth escapes from uncovered skin, and in a cold stone chamber the air above the bed can remain noticeably cooler than the space beneath the blankets. So before approaching the bed, the queen takes one final item from the waiting servant: a nightcap. It is simple in design, often made of linen or light wool, sometimes decorated with small stitching along the edge. The cap fits gently around the head, covering the hair and ears. Its purpose is not fashion. It is protection against the quiet chill of the night air. Once in place, the difference can feel subtle but important. Warmth remains closer to the body, and sleep becomes easier to maintain. Across the chamber, the prepared bed waits beneath its canopy. The curtains hang loosely, their thick fabric ready to be drawn closed once the queen lies down. The blankets beneath them still hold a trace of warmth left behind by the iron pan of coals used earlier. Not hot, but no longer cold. Just enough warmth to welcome the sleeper. As the queen approaches the bed, the servants step forward to assist. One lifts the curtain slightly. Another smooths the upper blanket so it lies evenly across the mattress. These gestures are gentle and efficient, almost silent in the dim firelight. Outside the chamber door, the castle continues its quiet routine. A guard's footsteps pass along the corridor. Somewhere far below, a final log settles deeper into a kitchen hearth. Wind moves softly along the battlements above. Inside the chamber, the queen climbs carefully into the bed. The mattress shifts slightly beneath the weight, straw rustling quietly within its linen casing. Blankets are drawn upward, first wool, then fur. Each layer adds another barrier between the body and the cold stone world outside the bed curtains. Once the blankets are arranged, the servants begin the final step of the evening. They pull the heavy curtains closed around the bed. The fabric falls slowly, enclosing the space. The outside chamber fades from view. The vast ceiling, the distant fireplace, the stone walls of the castle, all disappear behind thick folds of cloth. Inside the curtained bed, the air feels different, warmer. Still, a small pocket of comfort within a much larger room that remains cold. The servants lower their candles and quietly leave the chamber. The door closes with a soft wooden sound, and now the queen lies beneath layered blankets wrapped in linen, wool, and fur, her nightcap resting lightly against her head. Outside the bed curtains, winter continues its quiet work against the stone walls of the castle. But inside, for the moment at least, warmth has been carefully gathered, and the long medieval night is ready to begin. For a little while after settling into the bed, the chamber still feels almost comfortable. The blankets hold their warmth. The bed curtains soften the air around you, and somewhere beyond those heavy folds of fabric, the fireplace continues its steady glow. From inside the bed, the sound of the fire is gentle and familiar. A quiet shifting of logs, the soft pop of sap inside the wood, occasionally a small crack as a burning branch settles deeper into the embers. These sounds have accompanied winter nights in castles for centuries. They suggest warmth. They suggest safety. But there is a quiet truth about medieval fireplaces that most people never imagine. The fire warms the room, far less than you might expect. The hearth itself is large. In royal chambers, fireplaces were often built wide enough for several large logs to burn at once. The stone arch above the fire rises high, guiding smoke upward into the chimney, where it disappears into the night sky. During the evening, when servants are still nearby to tend the flames, the fire burns brightly. But even at its strongest, the heat it produces behaves in a particular way. Warm air rises. It moves upward toward the highest part of the chamber, and medieval castle rooms were built with very high ceilings. Much of the fire's warmth simply drifts above the level where people are sitting or sleeping, up into the shadowed beams overhead. There, the heat slowly disappears into the stone, which means the area closest to the hearth feels warm, but the rest of the chamber remains cool. You might notice this difference if you are standing in the room earlier. A few steps closer to the fire, and the warmth becomes pleasant. A few steps away, and the cold begins to return. This is why the bed curtains matter so much. Without them, the warmth created by the blankets and the body would rise quickly into the vast air of the chamber. The curtains slow that process. They create a smaller space where warmth can gather. Inside the bed now, the air is still. Your breathing becomes slower. Outside the curtains, the fire continues its patient work. But fires require attention. They must be fed with new logs. Ash must be cleared. Coals must be stirred. During the evening hours, servants handle these tasks regularly. But as the night grows later, fewer people remain awake to tend the hearth. And eventually, the fire begins to change. Not suddenly, just gradually. The tallest flames disappear first. The logs settle deeper into glowing embers. The bright orange light in the chamber softens into darker shades of red. From within the bed curtains you may not see this change clearly, but you can sense it. The light beyond the fabric becomes dimmer. The faint warmth drifting through the chamber grows weaker. The castle, after all, is enormous, and the fire is only one small source of heat within its vast stone walls. Still, the illusion of warmth remains powerful. Fire has always carried a comforting presence for human beings. Its glow suggests protection against the darkness outside. Its movement captures the eye and calms the mind. Even when its warmth is limited, its light feels reassuring. For a queen resting beneath layers of blankets, the fire represents more than simple heat. It represents the careful effort of the household to hold winter at bay. Servants gathered wood earlier in the day. Logs were stacked and carried. Ashes were cleared from the hearth. All of these small tasks were necessary to produce the quiet flame that now burns across the room. But the fire cannot fight the entire night alone. Winter is patient. Cold air presses steadily against the castle walls. Stone absorbs warmth as easily as it releases cold. And slowly, very slowly, the balance begins to shift. The bed curtains protect the warmth around your body for a while. The blankets continue to hold heat gathered from the earlier preparation. But outside the small enclosed space of the bed, The chamber grows colder again. If you were to reach a hand beyond the blankets now, you might feel the difference. The air outside the covers would feel noticeably cooler than the space beneath them. This is why people in the medieval world relied on layers. Layers of clothing, layers of blankets, layers of walls and curtains. Each layer slows the movement of heat. None of them stop it completely. They simply buy time. And winter nights were long, sometimes longer than any single fire could easily endure. Outside the chamber walls, the wind moves across the battlements. It slips along the narrow windows. It whispers through small openings in the stone where centuries of weather have worn the mortar thin. The castle stands firm against this wind, but the cold travels with it, little by little. Inside the bed, however, the queen remains warm enough for sleep. The fur covering rests gently across the upper blankets. The wool layers trap the warmth of her body. The nightcap protects against the cooler air above the pillow, and the bed curtains hold all of that warmth together within their quiet enclosure. For now, this small space is comfortable. Outside it, the chamber grows steadily colder. The fire continues to burn, but less brightly than before, and somewhere within the glowing coals, the long medieval night quietly begins its slow passage toward morning. Inside the heavy curtains of the bed, the queen finds herself in a world of her own. The rest of the chamber, the high ceilings, the distant fireplace, the stone walls, all fade quietly from view. Here the air is warmer. Here the sound of distant torches and footsteps is muffled. Here the night can begin without the pressure of the vast cold stone outside. This is the quiet magic of medieval bed curtains. They are not simply decorative. They are practical, even essential, for survival during the long winter months. Thick wool or layered fabrics hang around the frame, creating a small enclosed space. Inside, the air moves very little. The warmth generated by the sleeper's own body becomes the dominant temperature. The difference is subtle, but vital. A few degrees warmer air can mean hours of more restful sleep in a cold castle. From the small world, the queen can sense the castle around her, but only faintly. The muffled echoes of guards' footsteps along the corridors, the occasional whisper of wind moving across distant battlements, the low, steady crackle of the hearth fire, now smaller, now distant. Inside the curtains, all of these sounds are softened. The vastness of the chamber disappears. The cold outside becomes a gentle pressure rather than an immediate threat. And yet the mind is aware. Even in warmth, there is the subtle reminder of the outside world. Stone walls absorb heat. Windows let in drafts. The fire cannot warm everything. Winter is patient. Time stretches slowly. The queen may lie down and shift slightly, feeling the layers of blankets and furs around her. Wool scratches lightly against wool. Fur rests soft against the uppermost layer. The linens beneath provide a smooth base that holds warmth close to the body. Her breathing slows as the small pocket of heat around her adjusts to the contours of her body. The bed curtains create not only warmth, but also a sense of separation, a barrier against the vastness of the chamber. A private, slow-moving world where time stretches differently. Hours may pass here almost unnoticed. The mind drifts between observation and rest. The body remains mostly still, conserving heat. Sleep comes gradually, sometimes in fragments, sometimes deeper as the night wears on. Even small actions matter in this space. Adjusting the blanket slightly to trap more warmth, shifting the nightcap to cover an ear, pulling a corner of the fur closer to the shoulder. All small movements, each slowing the escape of warmth. From inside, one can imagine the rest of the castle continuing its quiet, measured activity. A guard pacing the hall. A distant footstep on stone stairs. The muffled movement of servants tending a late ember in the kitchens. Outside the bed curtains, these things are reminders that life continues. But inside they fade, becoming soft background noise. The small enclosed world also shapes perception of cold. Outside, the air is steadily cooling as the fire dies down further and the stone walls slowly release the day's stored chill. Inside, warmth clings, Even a small pocket of heat feels considerable when contrasted with the vast, cold surroundings. The queen's body, layered in linen, wool, and fur, radiates additional warmth. Inside the curtains, the air is almost still. There is no moving draft here. The small enclosure stabilizes the temperature. Minutes pass slowly. Time stretches quietly. In this way, medieval queen survives the long winter nights, not through luxury alone, not through ostentation, but through careful layering, thoughtful preparation, and the creation of small, controlled worlds inside otherwise vast and cold stone chambers. And from this private space, the queen begins to endure the long passage of hours until dawn. She rests, shifts slightly, breathes slowly. Time moves deliberately, hour by hour, within the bed curtains. Outside, winter continues its patient work. Stone holds the cold. Firelight fades. The castle sleeps unevenly. But inside this small enclosed space, warmth endures, just enough to survive the night. And perhaps if you listen quietly, you can imagine it too. The muffled sounds, the gentle warmth, the slow unfolding of night across stone, wool, and fur. This is how endurance is practiced. Not through sudden trials, but through small, consistent measures, through attention to detail, through patience, through the slow rhythm of the night itself. As the hours of the night progress, the castle settles into a slower rhythm. Beyond the bed curtains, torches burn lower along stone walls. The hearth in the chamber has dwindled to embers, sending only faint warmth into the room. The wind brushes against the narrow windows and the battlements, whispering across the cold stone. Inside the curtained bed, the queen remains cocooned. The layers of linen, wool, and fur continue to trap her body heat. The enclosed air moves little. Time seems to stretch differently here than in the open chamber. This is the quiet endurance of the night. Outside the bed, the castle is mostly still. Occasionally, a guard's steps echo down a distant corridor. Somewhere, a door closes gently. Fires in other parts of the fortress crackle and fade. All of these sounds are softened, dulled by the isolation of the bed curtains. They become background, a faint rhythm to which the night proceeds. The queen's body adjusts. A shift here, a tuck of the blankets there, a breath deeper into the warm air contained within the curtains. These small, deliberate movements help her conserve heat. Even as the outside air presses slowly against the stone, the microclimate of the bed remains a safe harbor. Winter nights were long, often 14 hours or more in total darkness. Patience above all was required. No sudden events, no bursts of action. Only the slow, measured passage of time, observed in microgestures, the soft exhale of breath, the shift of a limb beneath layers of wool and fur, the quiet settling of a mattress filled with straw. From within the small world of the bed curtains, the queen could reflect on the day behind her. Decisions made, visitors received, the endless observances of court life. And yet here, all of that faded. The night outside was patient. It demanded endurance rather than action. Sometimes awareness drifts toward discomfort. A cool draft brushes an uncovered shoulder. A finger grows cold beneath the uppermost layers. But in a carefully prepared bed, these sensations are managed, diffused. The queen adjusts. The blankets and furs trap more warmth. The rhythm of the fire outside, slow, fading, steady, continues as background. This is survival at its quietest. The body and mind adapt. Eyes may close for long periods. Sleep may come in fragments. Occasionally, a stir awakens a brief awareness of the cold, quickly soothed by shifting a blanket or pulling the curtains slightly tighter. Time flows slowly, deliberately, hour by hour. In some parts of the castle, others continue their duties through the night. A kitchen fire burns down to embers, guarded by a single cook. Guards patrol their designated routes along battlements and corridors. The wind outside presses against stone, snowdrifts quietly across the towers. But inside the bed curtains, the queen is insulated from much of this movement. It is easy to forget, for a while, that the night outside is relentless. Stone walls hold the chill. Windows allow the cold in. The hearth cannot reach every corner. The queen's endurance is quiet but deliberate, built on centuries of practice and attention to detail, layered clothing, carefully prepared bed, enclosed airspace within curtains. Some nights were more challenging than others. Perhaps a particularly fierce wind blew across the battlements, finding small cracks in the walls. Perhaps the hearth coals dimmed faster than usual. Even in wealth and power, warmth could not always be guaranteed. Survival required observation, adaptation, and patience. Each movement, adjusting layers, shifting furs, closing a small gap in the curtains, was a subtle act of endurance. And still, the night continued. Hours passed slowly. The mind drifted between observation and slumber. Small micro-curiosities surfaced. The soft pop of embers, the distant echo of footsteps, the faint movement of shadows cast by torchlight beyond the curtains. But they never demanded immediate action. They were part of the rhythm, part of the slow meditation that medieval nights often became. The bed, with its carefully layered blankets and furs, becomes more than a place to rest. It is a controlled environment, a sanctuary against the patient winter. Here, inside the curtains, a queen could endure what the stone walls and vast chamber could not entirely protect her from: the persistent, quiet cold. As midnight deepens, the slow vigil continues. The warmth of body, fabric, and carefully prepared bedding is measured against the enduring cold outside. The queen rests in intervals of consciousness and slumber. The night moves forward steadily, almost imperceptibly, guided by patience, preparation, and quiet adaptation. By now, sleep is no longer a simple act of closing one's eyes. It is a negotiation with time, with temperature, with the slow passage of hours in a cold stone chamber. Every layer, every curtain, every fold of wool is part of this negotiation. And though the night is long, the queen survives it, hour by hour, quietly, deliberately. Outside, the castle endures. Stone walls absorb and release cold. Fires in distant chambers continue to smolder. The wind presses against battlements. Time flows slowly, measured by breath, by shifting limbs beneath layers of warmth, by the soft fading crackle of embers in the hearth. And within this small world of bed curtains and layered bedding, endurance has its quiet victory, not a dramatic triumph, not a sudden relief, but the gentle persistence of warmth maintained against the slow, patient cold. A world carefully prepared for survival, hour by hour, in the long winter night. As the first pale light of winter begins to touch the highest towers of the castle, the queen remains within her curtained sanctuary. Outside, the world is quiet. Snow may have settled on the battlements. Frost clings to the stone ledges. The wind presses gently against the walls, carrying the faintest whisper of the frozen landscape beyond. Inside the chamber, the fire has long since dwindled. Its glow has softened into faint embers, and the high ceiling captures the remaining warmth, holding it far above the queen's resting place. You might notice a subtle shift as the day begins. The air beneath the bed curtains grows cooler, imperceptibly at first, as the night's warmth slowly begins to leak away. Small drafts find their way in, through gaps in the stone, along the windows, or through seams in the curtains. The queen stirs slightly, shifting beneath layers of wool and fur. Each movement is deliberate. A hand adjusts a blanket. A shoulder moves closer to the warm center of the bed. Even in sleep, the body acts instinctively to conserve warmth. Outside the bed, the castle is waking slowly. A distant clang of metal may signal a guard adjusting his armor, or a footstep along the spiral staircase echoing faintly through the corridors. The kitchens are quiet, but will soon come to life. Fires are rekindled, water is drawn, bread dough is prepared for baking. But for now, the chamber remains in a quiet early morning pause. The cold is present, patient, and inescapable. Stone has absorbed it all night, releasing it gradually into the room. Windows still hold a thin layer of frost, and the air itself carries a subtle chill. Inside the bed curtains, the queen continues her slow negotiation with the cold. The layers beneath her body, the carefully tucked furs, and the small pocket of warm air created by the curtains are all working together. Each breath adds warmth. Each subtle movement maintains it. This is endurance in its quietest form. Survival is not a matter of sudden action here. It is patience, observation, adjustment, and subtle repetition. A gentle tug on a blanket, a slight repositioning of a foot beneath the layers. Each motion maintains warmth for minutes or hours. You might imagine the weight of the blankets and furs pressing lightly against the body. It is comforting in its own way, but also a reminder of the outside cold. The linens closest to the skin feel smooth and slightly warm. Wool layers trap heat efficiently. Fur adds softness and extra insulation. The combination is deliberate, built over centuries of understanding how cold moves through stone chambers at night. Occasionally a sound breaks the near silence, a distant footstep, the faint rattle of a shutter moved by the wind, or the soft pop of a settling beam. Each is gentle, never startling, yet each serves as a reminder of the world beyond the bed curtains, of the patience required to endure it. Time stretches slowly. Early morning light begins to filter through the narrow windows, muted and pale, reflecting off stone and snow. Shadows shift gradually across the chamber floor. The firelight has faded almost entirely, leaving only the warmth stored in blankets and the queen's own body. Even in these first hours of day, the rhythm of endurance continues. Sleep may return, interrupted by awareness of the cool air, or by subtle shifts in the bedding. Each awakening is met not with panic, but with careful adjustment, pulling a blanket closer, shifting position, tucking furs more snugly around the shoulders. The castle itself seems to acknowledge the quiet passage of time. Stone walls hold the memory of the cold from the night before, gradually releasing it as the weak winter sun begins to touch the exterior. Windows and doors transmit only minimal warmth. Every room awakens slowly, but none so carefully as the queen's chamber. This slow unfolding is what allowed medieval queens to endure long winter nights. Survival did not depend solely on fire or stone walls, but on the careful construction of small worlds of warmth, layered clothing, multiple blankets, fur coverings, and the subtle microclimate within curtained beds. In these early hours, you can sense how deliberate every preparation was. Every choice linen beneath wool, wool beneath fur, the height of the bed, the drawing of curtains, was designed to buy hours of comfort in a vast and cold environment. The first light continues to stretch across the towers and walls. The quiet sounds of the castle multiply slightly, a distant hammer in the stables, a faint clatter of kitchen tools, the low murmur of a guard signaling morning rounds. Yet inside the bed curtains, the air remains warmer, insulated, still, protected. The queen remains cocooned, partially asleep, partially aware, adjusting subtly as the temperature shifts. This delicate negotiation with the cold repeated nightly is what survival in a medieval castle truly required. Not heroism, not drama, only careful attention, patience, and the slow accumulation of small protective measures against the relentless patience of winter. As the morning light continues to grow, it does not bring sudden comfort or warmth. The cold stone remains. Frost may still cling to the windows, yet the small enclosed world within the bed curtains continues to hold warmth, quietly, patiently, ensuring that the queen can face the hours to come with endurance already practiced through the long night. The pale light of dawn continues to stretch across the castle towers, filling the chamber with a slow, muted glow. Outside, the world has begun to stir. Guards move along corridors in careful steps, their leather boots whispering against cold stone. Somewhere, a distant kettle in the kitchens begins to hum softly as water is heated. Inside the queen's curtained bed, the warmth remains. It is not a sudden heat, but a gentle persistence. A small pocket of air shaped by blankets, furs, and the thick wool of the night. The queen shifts slightly beneath the layers, drawing herself toward the warmest center of her cocoon. Each movement is measured, each breath deliberate. Slowly, she awakens. Not with the abruptness of modern alarm, but with the gradual awareness that the night has passed and that the new day begins. Eyes open, the room remains quiet within the bed curtains. The fire has mostly died, leaving only faint embers, their glow barely touching the stone walls. The chill outside is persistent but softened by the small enclosed world she has created around herself. Morning routines begin in subtle ways. A hand adjusts a blanket to trap more warmth, tucking the corners closer to the shoulders. The nightcap is shifted slightly to cover an ear more snugly. Each micro-adjustment helps maintain the fragile comfort of the early hours. Servants begin their duties, moving quietly through the chamber. One carries a small basin of warm water, another a folded towel or fresh linens. They approach the bed gently, careful not to disturb the delicate balance of warmth and rest. Their movements are soft and practiced, designed to ease the queen into the waking hours, without shocking her body from its carefully preserved heat. The act of rising is slow. First, a stretch beneath layers of blankets, then the deliberate lifting of limbs. Wool and fur provide resistance, the body moving against the weight and warmth that have accumulated overnight. Linen beneath the skin remains smooth, allowing movement without friction. Every motion is careful, conserving the warmth gathered through the long night. Outside the bed, the chamber grows brighter as morning light strengthens. Shadows shift along the stone walls. The chill of the castle air penetrates slowly, reaching the edges of the bed curtains. Awareness of the world beyond the cocoon grows. The soft murmurs of servants, the distant sounds of the kitchens, the occasional echo of guards' footsteps. These are reminders that life continues beyond the private pocket of warmth. The queen rises gradually, aided by her attendants. Linen and wool are smoothed and folded, furs readjusted or removed for the day. Each garment is replaced in its proper order, conserving the integrity of the layers, while preparing for the functional requirements of daytime. Even in these moments, the queen's body remains attuned to the cold, and every layer removed or adjusted is done with careful attention to maintaining warmth. A small ritual follows, washing the face and hands in warm water, careful not to let the chill of the basin draw away the body's heat. Hair is brushed and arranged, often under a simple linen coif or cap, to maintain the modesty and insulation built into medieval clothing. Every action, though quiet, is deliberate and structured around survival as much as appearance. Breakfast may already be prepared elsewhere in the castle. The kitchens have been at work for some time, with fires rekindled, bread baking, and water boiled. Yet the queen's first moments of the day are still measured and slow, designed to let the body acclimate gradually to the colder air outside the bed. The castle itself remains a complex organism. Stone absorbs the night's chill, but morning light slowly begins to counteract it. The battlements are dusted with frost. Corridors and staircases, still empty, echo with the distant sounds of early movement. Through it all, the queen's chamber remains a small pocket of warmth, transitioning from the carefully protected world of night to the functional routines of the day. Even as she rises, the memory of endurance lingers. The careful layering of linen, wool, and fur, the pocket of warm air created by the bed curtains, the subtle rhythm of breath and micro-adjustments, all these lessons of the night carry forward into the morning. Each day begins with awareness of cold and a practiced response, a quiet patience honed over time. By the time the queen moves fully from the bed, the chamber has brightened further. The warmth inside the curtained bed has diffused slightly into the room, leaving a residual comfort even as the chill begins to return. The morning light touches the stone walls, and the faint sound of a distant wind reminds her that winter is still present. Yet within this careful transition, survival is continuous. Every movement, every layer, every preparation of the previous night ensures that the queen can face the day not suddenly, but gradually, with measured endurance. Warmth, though fleeting, has been preserved. Comfort, though modest, has been built. And through it all, the slow rhythm of medieval life in a cold stone castle unfolds quietly, deliberately, and almost imperceptibly. Morning routines are thus not merely practical. They are a continuation of the night's endurance. Each gesture, each action, preserves the balance between warmth and cold, between comfort and survival. This measured approach to daily life ensured that those who slept within such castles could awaken prepared, protected, and ready for the long winter day ahead. By mid-morning the castle itself begins to awaken more fully, though still in a measured, deliberate manner. The high stone walls retain the cold of the night, releasing it slowly into the corridors and chambers. The faint chill carries through doorways, brushing against the stone floors where servants quietly move. In the Queen's chamber, the bed curtains have been drawn back. Blankets and furs are folded and stacked neatly. Linen layers are smoothed and hung for airing. The Queen herself moves slowly, walking carefully across the cold stone floor. Every step is deliberate, cushioned by soft slippers or thick woolen socks. Even small contact with the chilled stone is noted by the body, a reminder of how carefully warmth must be preserved in this environment. Morning chores begin almost imperceptibly. A servant stokes the dying embers of the hearth, lifting the remaining coals, adding kindling, and blowing softly to reignite the heat. The fire responds slowly, catching and brightening as small flames begin to grow. This is not a sudden burst of warmth, but a gradual increase, a slow return of heat into the chamber. Nearby, another servant carries water heated over the kitchen hearth. The basin is set carefully, and the Queen washes her hands and face. The water is warm, but the chill of the stone beneath the feet reminds her that comfort is temporary and layered. Each task is small, repetitive, and deliberate. The Queen's movement through these routines maintains her control over the temperature and the subtle rhythm of the morning. Elsewhere in the castle, corridors and staircases begin to carry more sound. A distant hammer from the blacksmith's forge echoes through the halls. The kitchens come alive with the smell of baking bread and boiling porridge. Guards patrol the outer walls and towers with measured steps. Snow crunches faintly under their boots as the outer gates are inspected. Inside the Queen's chamber, these sounds are muffled by the stone walls and the thick wooden doors. Yet they create a quiet backdrop, a rhythm that marks the passage of time. The Queen listens without urgency, her attention divided between the body, the warmth she maintains, and the gentle awareness of the castle awakening. The act of maintaining fire is essential for survival. Logs are carefully selected for their ability to burn long and steady. Too much wood at once risks a sudden flare and wasted heat. Too little results in slow cooling and creeping cold. Every movement at the hearth is calculated, ensuring a continuous slow increase in warmth that can be sustained for hours rather than moments. Breakfast is prepared elsewhere, but arrives in the Queen's chamber at a deliberate pace. The food itself is simple: bread, cheese, and perhaps a small portion of meat. The warmth of the meal adds a subtle layer to the body's heat, a gentle reinforcement of the protective microclimate built throughout the night. Eating is slow, deliberate. Each bite is measured, allowing warmth to penetrate the body gradually. Servants continue their tasks, smoothing curtains, rearranging tapestries, and opening shutters to let in more morning light. Each action contributes to the gradual transformation of the chamber, easing it from the cold cocoon of night into the livelier, though still measured, pace of day. The Queen's body, having endured the long winter night, responds slowly to this shift. Muscles stretch beneath the layers of clothing, joints loosen in the warmth that has been restored. Breath deepens, circulation increases. Endurance from the night informs each movement, no sudden haste, only deliberate, controlled actions that preserve comfort and warmth. Even in the castle's awakening, the rhythm remains gentle. The large stone walls, though slowly warming, continue to radiate residual chill. Windows still hold frost in the corners. Doors are opened carefully to prevent drafts from spreading cold. Every detail of the morning routine is designed to preserve the equilibrium established during the night. By now, the Queen may move to a writing desk or dressing area. Layers of clothing are adjusted for the day ahead. Linen and wool are arranged to maintain warmth, while furs are set aside for later use or for ceremonial occasions. The microclimate created during the night has served its purpose, and careful attention ensures that comfort is extended as long as possible into the daylight hours. Outside the chamber, the castle hums with measured life. Servants fetch water, tend to animals, and manage supplies. The kitchens are fully engaged in preparation for the day. Guards walk the battlements and inspect gates. The stone walls slowly release the night's cold into hallways, while sun touches the upper towers. Inside the Queen's chamber, the final remnants of night's endurance remain. The fire is now brighter, sending steady warmth into the room. Blankets and furs, no longer required for immediate survival, have been neatly folded. The body has adjusted to the gradually warming chamber. Awareness, once tightly focused on survival and microclimate, can now expand toward observation, reflection, and the day's responsibilities. This careful transition illustrates how medieval queens survived not only freezing nights but also the slow shift from night to day. Every element, bed curtains, layered blankets, furs, linen, wool, fire management, and measured routines, contributes to a seamless endurance strategy. Comfort, warmth, and survival are achieved through deliberate, continuous effort rather than sudden action. The morning continues to unfold slowly. Light strengthens, stone walls gradually release warmth. Servants move in quiet rhythm. Fires burn steadily. And within this orchestrated environment, the queen begins her day with deliberate awareness, carrying forward the lessons of patience, adaptation, and endurance learned through countless winter nights. By late morning, the queen has moved fully into the day. The fire in her chamber burns steadily now, casting a soft glow across the stone walls. Sunlight, pale and winter-soft, enters through narrow windows, striking the cold surfaces with quiet insistence. Despite these small sources of heat, the chill lingers in corners and along the floor. The body, having endured the long night and gradual morning routines, begins to notice subtle fatigue. Muscles stretched gently in waking now feel the accumulated weight of hours spent in stillness and careful adjustment. Each movement, even the simplest, requires a quiet awareness. A step across the stone floor, the lifting of furs, or the adjustment of a sleeve carries more attention than one might expect. Outside the bed, the chamber continues to change slowly. Servants move in a muted rhythm, carrying water, tidying blankets, or replenishing the hearth. Each task is performed with quiet precision, meant to preserve comfort without causing sudden drafts or disturbances. The room gradually fills with the faint scent of smoke, wool, and linen, a subtle combination that marks the transition from night to day. Somewhere beyond the chamber, the castle hums with early activity. Kitchens are fully alive with the preparation of meals. Guards patrol the corridors and staircases, their footsteps echoing gently. Horses are fed, stables cleaned, and supplies managed. Yet within the queen's private chambers, life unfolds at a slower pace, almost as if the stone itself moderates the tempo. Fatigue is quiet, almost imperceptible, but persistent. It is the weight of hours spent maintaining warmth and endurance, of small adjustments repeated through the long night, of breath measured against the cold stone air. The queen senses it in her shoulders, in the back and in the soles of her feet. Each task now is performed with deliberate slowness, conserving energy while sustaining warmth. Meals are simple, taken in intervals. A piece of bread, some cheese, perhaps a small portion of meat. Each bite is deliberate, providing nourishment and a subtle increase in body warmth. The act of eating, like every other movement, is measured. Too fast and warmth escapes, too slow, and the cold reasserts itself. Balance is everything. Servants attend with practiced ease. They know the careful order of the chamber, the placement of furs, the weight of blankets, the position of the queen's garments, even the smallest movements, stirring the hearth, adjusting curtains, or moving a chair, done in quiet rhythm that preserves heat and minimizes disturbance. Outside, the cold is steady but not sudden. Stone walls retain the memory of the night. Windows hold frost in corners and along ledges. Each corridor and stairway carries a hint of chill, a reminder that winter is patient and enduring. The queen's chamber, carefully managed, remains warmer than most other rooms, but it is not entirely immune. Subtle fatigue influences perception. Movements that were effortless during the night now require slightly more attention. Eyes grow heavy. Muscles resist. Awareness must balance between tasks and the careful maintenance of comfort. The queen's body has adapted to these conditions over years, understanding the delicate rhythm of exertion, rest, and warmth. The fire in the chamber provides steady warmth, but it is only one element of survival. Blankets, furs, clothing, and curtains continue to play their role. Each layer slows heat loss, Each careful adjustment extends endurance. The queen moves among these layers with practiced skill, aware of the slow, quiet negotiation with the surrounding cold. Time continues to stretch slowly. Outside corridors carry more noise now. Footsteps, clattering dishes, distant voices. But inside the chamber, a calm rhythm persists. Tasks are completed deliberately. Attention is focused, yet not urgent. The queen remains at the center of a carefully balanced world where survival and comfort coexist. The subtle fatigue, while persistent, does not demand rest immediately. It lingers quietly, a reminder of the night endured and the slow passage of morning. Every gesture lifting a blanket, arranging furs, adjusting a garment is performed with this awareness, preserving both warmth and energy for the hours ahead. Through these late morning routines, the queen demonstrates how medieval endurance is practiced. It is not drama nor sudden trial. It is subtle, patient, and continuous. Preparation, observation, and careful management of microclimates allow survival across the coldest nights and the gradual awakening of winter days. Even as the castle awakens fully, the queen's chamber maintains its small world of warmth and measured effort. The body's subtle fatigue is a gentle echo of the night, a quiet testament to endurance. The queen moves through her tasks deliberately, preserving the fragile balance between comfort, warmth, and survival. This pattern, repeated countless times over years of winters, ensures that the cold, though persistent and patient, never overwhelms. Warmth is cultivated, preserved, and carefully managed. Fatigue is acknowledged, respected, and accommodated through slow, deliberate motion. The castle itself, the fire, the blankets, and the body's adaptations all contribute to the endurance of daily life in a cold medieval environment. And so, late morning passes with quiet rhythm. The fire burns steadily, blankets and furs are adjusted as needed, and the queen's body carries the accumulated weight of night and morning. The cold outside presses gently, persistently, but survival within the chamber continues through careful observation, deliberate action, and the slow, patient rhythm of medieval life. By midday, the castle hums with a steady, deliberate rhythm. The light through the narrow windows has strengthened, pale and winter-soft, illuminating the stone corridors and chambers. The air is still cool, though no longer biting, and the weight of the cold that lingered through the night has begun to lessen in the sunlit spaces. The queen moves through her chamber with a quiet awareness. Every action is measured, even simple movements, reaching for a folded blanket, adjusting a fur drape, sliding a chair across the cold floor require a balance between efficiency and conservation of warmth. The body, still carrying subtle fatigue from the night and morning routines, responds with gentle caution. Servants continue their chores with the same quiet precision. One carries a basin of warm water to refresh the chamber. Another repositions heavy curtains to allow more sunlight to reach certain corners, while still keeping drafts at bay. A third adjusts tapestries along the walls, their thick wool panels providing both decoration and insulation against the residual chill of stone. The queen observes this quiet activity, noting how the microclimate of the room has changed over the hours. The fire now burns steadily, the hearthstones radiating gentle heat. Sunlight pools across the floor, warming sections of the room. The stone walls, once cold and unyielding, have absorbed fragments of the fire's warmth and the sun's soft rays, slowly releasing them back into the space. Every observation is subtle, almost imperceptible, but important. Endurance in a medieval castle is not measured in grand gestures or sudden action. It is the careful attention to the slow rhythms of environment, body, and habit. The queen has learned to read the room as an experienced navigator reads the seas, noticing shifts in temperature, drafts, and light, predicting where warmth is strongest, and adjusting movements accordingly. Tasks for the day begin quietly. Linen must be aired, blankets fluffed, and furs realigned. Each garment or covering is handled with care, moved to maximize both comfort and insulation. The weight of these objects is not insignificant. Wool and fur are heavy, layered to create warmth through density and trapped air. Handling them requires gentle effort, mindful of the body's own endurance. Meanwhile, in corridors and outer chambers, the castle operates with deliberate purpose. Guards maintain their posts along battlements and staircases. In the kitchens, fires are tended, bread baked, and water drawn. Horses are fed and stabled, and the sounds of daily life echo softly through the stone hallways. The Queen's chamber remains insulated from these larger movements, yet the faint hum of activity provides a steady rhythm, marking the passage of time. Subtle fatigue lingers in the Queen's limbs. Hours of careful adjustments, measured steps across cold floors, and attention to warmth have left traces of weariness. Yet endurance is maintained, not through denial of the body's signals, but through deliberate accommodation. Movements are slower, pauses longer, gestures softer. The body's energy is conserved, yet tasks continue, performed with quiet diligence. Even at rest, awareness of cold persists. Sunlight does not penetrate every corner, and stone walls retain their chill. Drafts may sneak through small gaps in doors or windows. Each of these requires attention repositioning of curtains, slight adjustments of blankets or furs, or the mindful placement of objects to block airflow. These minor interventions accumulate over hours, creating a controlled, survivable environment within the larger, colder castle. The Queen's eyes may wander across the chamber, noting small details. A faint shadow moving across the floor as sunlight shifts. The subtle play of firelight on tapestry threads, or the soft movement of a servant's hand arranging linens. Observation is deliberate but not hurried. It is part of endurance, understanding how time, light, and temperature interact within the space, and adjusting responses accordingly. Meals continue at intervals, simple but essential. Bread, cheese, small portions of meat or pottage provide nourishment, sustaining warmth internally as well as externally. Each bite is taken slowly, allowing digestion to contribute subtly to body heat. Hydration is managed carefully, as the cold air can quickly dry mucous membranes, and the body requires a balance of fluids and warmth. By now, the cumulative weight of endurance is evident. Limbs are slightly heavier, breath measured, posture conscious of warmth. The Queen has maintained a continuous negotiation with the environment, balancing comfort, heat, and energy expenditure. This is not dramatic exertion, yet it is quietly demanding. The passage of hours becomes almost tangible, marked not by clocks but by the slow shifts of temperature, light, and the body's own sensations. Outside the chamber, life in the castle continues with similar patience. Servants move in measured rhythms. Guards trace their circuits. Fires in kitchens and ancillary chambers burn steadily, releasing warmth slowly through stone and air. The cold, though diminished by the sun, remains persistent, a constant reminder that survival requires continued attention and care. By midday, the Queen's chamber represents a carefully managed microcosm. Warmth has been cultivated, fatigue acknowledged, and endurance sustained. Every layer, every movement, every observation has contributed to maintaining comfort and survival. The lessons of the night continue into the day, carried through subtle attention to detail and slow, deliberate action. This quiet rhythm, repeated across countless winter days, ensured that medieval queens could survive not only the extremes of night, but also the subtle pressures of long winter days within stone castles. Endurance is practiced in small, continuous measures, careful layering, precise adjustment, patient observation, and deliberate action. The day moves forward slowly, each hour blending into the next. The fire continues to radiate warmth. Curtains remain partially drawn. Blankets and furs are readjusted as necessary. Food sustains the body, and the Queen, aware of the ongoing negotiation between cold and comfort, moves through her chamber and routines with measured skill, embodying the quiet resilience that medieval life required. By mid-afternoon, the slow rhythm of the castle has reached a quiet plateau. Sunlight, pale and weak in winter, continues to filter through narrow windows, tracing faint patterns across the stone floor. The chill of the morning has lessened, but shadows linger in corners and along the edges of tapestries. The stone walls, though slowly warmed, retain a subtle cold that brushes against any exposed skin. The Queen, having moved through her morning routines and mid-morning chores, now experiences the gentle weight of fatigue. It is not sharp or urgent, but persistent. Limbs feel heavier. Muscles bear the subtle ache of repeated small motions, lifting blankets, adjusting furs, walking across cold floors. Each gesture requires deliberate attention, balancing effort and endurance. Small tasks continue quietly throughout the chamber. A folded blanket is repositioned on a chair. Furs are fluffed to maintain insulation. Linen is straightened and inspected for wear or moisture. Each movement is performed with calm deliberation, slow and mindful, preserving the warmth that has been cultivated over the night and morning. The queen's attention drifts naturally to the subtleties of the environment. She notices the faint crackle of the hearth, the play of pale light across stone and textile, and the gentle hum of distant activity elsewhere in the castle. The hum is muted, softened by thick walls and closed doors, yet it marks the slow passage of time, each sound a quiet reminder of life beyond the chamber. Meals may be offered intermittently, small portions of bread, cheese, or pottage. Each is taken deliberately, sustaining warmth internally as well as nourishing the body. Drinking warm water or thin herbal infusions adds comfort, counteracting dryness from the cold stone air. Even these simple acts are part of endurance, a subtle attention to the balance of warmth, hydration, and energy. Servants move in a similar rhythm. They tend to fires, adjust curtains to capture shifting sunlight, refill basins with warm water, and manage blankets and furs. Their movements are careful and quiet, avoiding sudden drafts or unnecessary disturbance. The queen, accustomed to these rhythms, coordinates with them subtly, using gestures or brief words rather than hurried commands. Outside the chamber, the castle hums with activity, but in measured, deliberate patterns. Guards patrol the walls and corridors, their footsteps echoing softly. Kitchens continue to operate, fires burning steadily, water boiling for meals and cleaning. Horses are fed, stables maintained, and deliveries of firewood or supplies managed with calm persistence. The cold, though less pronounced than overnight, remains an ever-present companion. Fatigue deepens slowly. It is not a call for rest, but a quiet signal to moderate effort. The queen's body responds by moving more deliberately, pausing between tasks, and conserving energy where possible. Each careful step, each measured motion is a continuation of the endurance developed during long winter nights and slow mornings. Observation remains constant. The queen notes how sunlight shifts across the room, how warmth concentrates near the hearth, how drafts may creep along the floor or through cracks in the walls. Each subtle change informs small adjustments, a blanket repositioned, a curtain drawn slightly, a fur shifted to cover an exposed arm. Endurance here is cumulative, a quiet negotiation between the body, environment, and the slow passage of time. The slow march of hours is almost tangible. Shadows lengthen and shift. Firelight flickers against stone walls. Servants continue their quiet labor. The queen moves among these elements with careful awareness, conserving energy while maintaining warmth. Each small task, no matter how mundane, is performed with patience and attention to detail. Evening preparations begin steadily. Fires are stoked with an eye toward the approaching night. Blankets and furs are rearranged to be ready for their nightly roles. Windows and doors are checked for drafts. These actions are unhurried, deliberate, ensuring that the chamber will remain a pocket of warmth and comfort as darkness falls. Through these long hours, the queen experiences the persistent, quiet pressures of winter life. Cold is a constant companion, subtle yet unyielding. Fatigue accrues gently as muscles, circulation, and focus all respond to the day's slow exertions. Survival in a medieval castle is measured not in grand trials but in these small repeated acts, performed continuously and mindfully. Time continues its gentle progression. The chamber, warmed by fire and sunlight, retains a delicate equilibrium between comfort and chill. The queen, aware of her own endurance, moves with measured care through every task, every adjustment, every observation. The slow, deliberate rhythm of life in a cold stone castle is maintained, a constant practice of awareness, adaptation, and quiet resilience. By late afternoon, the day has stretched far. The fire burns steadily, casting long shadows across the stone floor. Blankets and furs are positioned carefully, maintaining pockets of warmth. Servants move softly, attending to chores with attention to both efficiency and conservation of heat. And the queen, carrying the cumulative weight of fatigue and vigilance, remains a central figure in this measured, enduring world. The persistence of cold, subtle fatigue and continuous attention demonstrates the essence of medieval survival. Comfort is achieved not suddenly, but through sustained, mindful effort. Warmth is cultivated through layered garments, blankets, furs, and careful management of fire. Endurance is maintained through patience, observation, and repeated small actions that stretch across hours, days, and seasons. By the close of the afternoon, the queen is prepared to transition toward evening routines. The lessons of endurance, patience, and awareness developed through long nights, slow mornings, and measured afternoons remain. The chamber is a carefully balanced microcosm of warmth, vigilance, and survival, ready to face the cold that will inevitably return with nightfall. The afternoon light slowly fades. Shadows lengthen across the stone floors, stretching along walls and tapestries, pooling in the corners that the fire cannot yet reach. The queen moves through the chamber, attending to the final adjustments of the day. Blankets are smoothed, furs arranged, and linen layers inspected one last time. Each gesture is deliberate, gentle, and slow, conserving warmth, energy, and attention. Outside, the castle grows quieter. Footsteps echo less frequently in distant corridors. The kitchens have completed their daytime tasks, fires now reduced to steady glows beneath cauldrons and ovens. Guards patrol with measured steps, their routines unchanging but precise, a quiet rhythm that underscores the persistence of life within these cold stone walls. The queen pauses beside the hearth, letting the warmth embrace her slowly. The fire is modest now, flickering against stone and wood, its glow soft and steady. She allows herself a small measure of rest, leaning lightly against a wooden chair or the edge of her writing desk. The subtle fatigue of the day is present, not urgent, but persistent. Muscles loosen, joints ease, and the body begins to anticipate the coming night. Evening is not marked by ceremony or urgency, but by subtle changes. The fire's warmth deepens the shadows in the corners. The cold from stone walls creeps imperceptibly closer. The faint wind brushes against narrow windows. The queen remains aware, not alarmed, maintaining her small sphere of warmth through careful layering, movement, and the quiet work of survival. She observes the chamber with a practiced calm. The tapestries now hang still, heavy wool providing both insulation and beauty. Curtains fall precisely where they must to trap heat and block drafts. Blankets and furs, folded during the day, are ready to be rearranged for the night. Each object in the room carries a purpose, a history of slow, attentive preparation, a testament to centuries of survival knowledge passed down among those who have known the cold as a constant companion. Meals of the afternoon are modest, taken in intervals that reflect the slow rhythm of endurance. A piece of bread, a small serving of cheese, perhaps a sip of warm broth. Each nourishes not only the body, but also the quiet strategies of warmth, internal heat added to the careful layering, slow and cumulative, complementing the fire and textiles that fill the room. The castle itself seems to settle into evening. Light fades further, leaving the room bathed in the warm glow of the hearth and the soft reflection of daylight through narrow windows. Sounds become muted, distant footsteps, the faint clatter of dishes, the low hum of conversation in far chambers. All carry a quiet persistence, reminders of life continuing, yet softened by distance and the thick stone that defines the castle's endurance. The queen moves slowly, deliberately. Each motion is measured against the cold, the fatigue, and the rhythms of the room. Hands smooth the layers of blankets once more. Furs are shifted to maintain insulation. Curtains are drawn slightly to trap heat without blocking the remaining light. Even small adjustments are significant, part of an unbroken chain of care, observation, and survival. She may sit at her writing desk, pen in hand, reflecting on the hours past. The day has been long, measured, and patient as all winter days are. The mind wanders quietly, observing the patterns of light, shadow, and warmth, noting the small interventions that have maintained comfort and endurance. There is no urgency in thought, only the slow rhythm of reflection and awareness. Time continues to stretch, and the day gently transitions into night. The fire burns steadily, its warmth a comforting constant. The queen adjusts one last layer of blankets around her shoulders, then rests, allowing the body to sink into the cushions and furs that have been carefully arranged throughout the day. The chill beyond the chamber walls is present but softened, managed by a combination of knowledge, preparation, and patient observation. Evening shadows deepen further, merging with the soft glow of the hearth. The faint crackle of wood accompanies the slow ticking of moments, each one passing quietly, without drama or urgency. The queen listens to these subtle rhythms, the whisper of wind outside, the distant movement of servants, the low murmur of the castle itself, and allows them to settle into a gentle background, a soft awareness that carries the body toward rest. This is the quiet end of a long winter day, endurance maintained, warmth preserved, fatigue acknowledged. The lessons of the day and the night before have been repeated and reinforced, careful layering of clothing and bedding, deliberate management of fire, attentive observation of drafts, measured motion across stone floors. Survival is continuous, cumulative, and deliberate. The queen allows herself to drift, half attentive, half resting. There is no sudden conclusion, no finality, only the soft, continuous flow of time, warmth, and observation. The castle outside is steady, enduring, patient. The cold persists quietly, but it has been met with knowledge, preparation, and care. The body relaxes into this equilibrium, aware of fatigue, yet comforted by the accumulated warmth and the gentle order of the room. As night deepens, the queen may rearrange one last time, smoothing furs, drawing curtains tightly, adjusting blankets. Each movement is slow, mindful, a final reinforcement of survival and comfort before surrendering to the quiet of the chamber. The hearth's embers glow steadily, casting soft light on stone and textile. Shadows dance gently across walls, marking the subtle passage of time, unhurried and persistent. The day comes to an unforced close. The queen leans back into her cushions, wrapped in layers of linen, wool, and fur, feeling the accumulated warmth of the chamber and her own body. The castle hums softly around her footsteps, distant, fire crackling, wind whispering. She breathes slowly, deliberately, sinking into the quiet. There is no triumph, no drama, only the persistent, enduring rhythm of medieval life, carefully maintained through knowledge, patience, and attention to small details. And so the day fades, not with sudden resolution, but with gentle continuity. The cold remains outside, persistent, but tempered by centuries of learned endurance. The queen rests, her body supported, her mind calm, and the castle continues its quiet, measured existence. The warmth she has cultivated lingers, not absolute, but sufficient, a testament to the quiet mastery of survival in stone walls, beneath tapestries among blankets and furs. Through the long patience of winter, the world beyond remains cold, the stone walls enduring. But within this chamber, layers of history, knowledge, and careful attention create a small refuge. The queen, wrapped in warmth and slow reflection, drifts in and out of wakefulness, half aware, half resting, carrying forward the quiet legacy of survival that has endured across generations of winter nights. In this way, medieval queens did not merely survive freezing castle nights, they practiced them, observed them, and met them with deliberate attention. Each day was an extension of endurance, each night a continuation of a quiet, persistent rhythm. And through it all, the slow, gentle passage of time carried both cold and warmth together, a soft balance sustained by knowledge, care, and deliberate patience. The fire flickers low, the chamber settles into shadows, and the queen leans into quiet release. The day is complete, the night approaching gently, and the enduring rhythm of survival continues, unbroken, slow, and hypnotic.